Sheriff David Clarke of Milwaukee joins me now. Sheriff Clarke, first of all, congratulations for dealing with that condescending Don Lemon.
Well, thanks, but that was like child's play, really. You know, when you come into a thing not prepared like he wasn't for a real conversation, I didn't know if he was expecting me to play patty cake with him or not, but it's not how I roll.
No, so look, what he's trying to do is separate the people in the Black Lives Matter movement who call for the death of cops from everybody else. Can that movement be divided in two?
No, because it's an ideology, and it is a very dangerous ideology. It's an ideology of hate. It's one that spews vile and vitriol in the name of virtue, and that's why when something's a dangerous ideology, you can't sort it out. It's almost like, and I'm not comparing it to that. I'm just giving you an example. Radical Islam. You can't sort it out because it becomes impossible to do. And so you look and you say, this is a dangerous ideology, and we need to end it.
What difference did it make to the Black Lives Matter movement slash ideology that President Obama invited them into the White House and met with its leader, DeRay McKesson?
Well, see, that's why I say, and it's the way I was brought up, actions speak louder than words. And that's why when he takes the microphone, he being President of the United States, with all due respect, and he starts talking about how important our officers are and our officers work hard and they have a dangerous job. Those are words. That's all those are. His actions tell a different story. Like you said, when he invites that goof to the White House and he sits up there at a round table and tells them they're doing a great job of organizing. What they're doing is a great job of hating on the American police officer and stoking up resentment and anger in people who may be frustrated for something else, and then they look to play that out on some hate target, and that hate target, according to this Black Lives ideology, is the American police officer and the institution of policing right now.
Do you connect the two shooters, Gavin Long and Micah Johnson, directly with Black Lives Matter?
Well, I don't know. When I get asked those questions, I go, well, what are we trying to do here? All right, both of these guys are killers. Both of them did exhibit some, we'll call it what it is, black racism. Okay, so there are some parallels. So I won't make a connection. I don't know that I need to. They're both killers. They both killed cops. They killed multiple cops, and in doing so, voice some sort of support for this whole Black Lives Matter ideology. And so I think there are parallels more so than direct associations. But in my book, there don't have to be direct associations. This is all hate.
What if there are leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement slash ideology? How should they separate themselves from these kind of people who will go out actually hunting cops down?
Well, first of all, they need to knock this stuff off because this whole thing is premised on a lie, John, and you know it. Okay, this thing started out as the hands up, don't shoot movement. And so Black Lives ideology really is the bastard child of the hands up, don't shoot. There is no data. I'm saying no data or research to support their claims that American law enforcement officers are racist, they're bloodthirsty. I know the President of the United States has said some very disgusting things coming out of the mouth of somebody in his position. One of the things that he said some time ago, and I say some time ago, probably in the last year, it wasn't that long ago, he said, our law enforcement officers have a fear of people that don't look like them. My jaw dropped when I heard that. And so when he says things like that, how he chastised the Cambridge Police Department because they arrested his friend who was uncooperative with the police, the Cambridge, Massachusetts Police Department. When he tries to appoint to head the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice a cop-hating, black racist, Dable Adegbile, against the strong opposition of every law enforcement organization in America. I said at a meeting where Eric Holder attended, at the national sheriffs, and the major county sheriffs, and the major city chiefs were there represented, We beg Derek Holder, please tell the president, do not submit Dabo Degbele, who tried to make a folk hero, John, out of Abu Jamal, a notorious Philadelphia cop killer.
Is do you think that the president was chastened by the Baton Rouge killings, and therefore, when he made a public statement, there was no, community and cops have bad relationship. There was no gun control. There was none of that. It was just an out and out condemnation.
Well, I see this thing as I predicted, and I'm not in the predicting game, but I understand this movement, this ideology going back to the 60s with the Students for a Democratic Society. And they're using the same model. These are a bunch of anarchists. And by the way, it was the Students for a Democratic Society that organized the Black Panther Party back then. You fast forward to 2016, and they've made a political construct out of this Black Lives ideology. But I think getting back to what the president had to say about what happened in Baton Rouge, he was a little more tempered. He said the right things, but John, we all condemn the violence. We all thought that was horrific, and that's what he said. This was horrific and senseless. We know that. Everybody knows that, but what he will not do is he will not stand up and condemn, denounce, and disown the anti-cop sentiment spewed by this Black Lives ideology. That's what I want to hear him say. I want to hear him talk about the anti-police sentiment that is sweeping the country, and he won't do that.
Do you think that the Baton Rouge Police Department, understandably, they've been a little busy lately, but should they have said something about the investigation into Alton Sterling's killing by now? Or is it seem to you it's coming a little slow?
Well, I don't know all the facts, and I don't need to know all the facts to answer your question, but I always want to start out by saying it because I want to temper what I say. That's a fine line to walk sometimes because you want to protect the integrity of the investigation, but you do it. In this day and age, we can't get away with any longer. We can't get away with saying nothing. We cannot do that, or very little. But I'll tell you what, right now, John, that some of these law enforcement agencies have done that. They've gone out of their way to put out as much as they can, including identifying the officer and giving out as much as they can, and it still doesn't appease this movement, this ideology, because they're not looking for justice. They're looking for revenge, and they're using these things as a catalyst to promote their anti-cop agenda. Look, what happened in Louisiana, and I don't know what happened. All I know is there's a guy who came in contact with police, and he ends up dead. Police use deadly force. We know that. That's a fact. The same thing in Minnesota. I don't know what happened. There's an investigation going on, and the president would be wise to remind people not to rush to judgment, and instead he comes out with a statement that says, regardless of how this turns out, that means he doesn't care what the facts are going to show, and then he goes into his tirade, about racism and about gun control. So, that's a judgment call by the folks down in Louisiana. But here's what I say: that's an issue for Louisiana. These are local issues. They take on national news, but not to this extent. Let the folks down there sort this out. I trust our process. I trust these investigations. I trust that there isn't some conspiracy down there by the district attorney or whatever they call their state prosecutor and all the elected officials to try to cover anything up. That day is over. It's been over for a long time. So we just have to wait. We have to have patience. But since we're dealing with a political construct, they just want to continue to push the envelope. They don't really care to wait for the facts. They're not interested in the facts because the facts came out in Ferguson, Missouri. The facts are coming out in Baltimore, Maryland. And there are still people to this day that think Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri had his hands up, his back to Officer Wilson, was walking away saying, don't shoot. That was a complete lie. In fact, he was trying to disarm that officer, but there are still people that are of this ilk who say Mike Brown was murdered. Mike Brown was not murdered. Darren Wilson had to defend his own life. Mike Brown was trying to disarm him. When you try to disarm a law enforcement officer, bad things are going to happen. Usually the officer's going to end up dead. So Darren Wilson didn't have much choice, but there are still people, and that's why I said the facts be damned to this movement, to this ideology. This is a political construct to rile up people, to roil people, to incite them into some of this, this hate we're seeing played out. And it isn't just the cop killing. I mean, that's bad enough, but it's the rioting and it's some of the other disorder and stuff that we should not tolerate in a civil society.
Last and sort of quick, I said today that I thought President Obama lit a fuse when he met with DeRay McKesson. Was I wrong to say that?
No, oh no, that and he knows. Look, say what you want about President Obama. He's not an idiot. He is not an idiot. He's not a dumb guy. He's a very smart guy. He knew because there were cameras and they invited the media in. So he didn't even do it clandestinely. He wanted people to know that he was meeting with them. He wanted this movement to know. He wanted certain demographics to know that he's down with the struggle. And so he did it, in plain sight. And that's kind of just a thumb in the eye to the American people. That's all that was.
Sheriff David Clarke, Sheriff, it's always great to talk to you. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're going to be active in the convention, so we'll be hearing from you over the coming days.
Thanks. It's my pleasure.